Well, Phil, you're the first person to sit in these chairs, so I'm very grateful that you're here. As Leah and we discussed, sort of mentioned, I can't say there's honestly a plan to this, but the long and short of it is this room kind of came together from not really a dream, maybe almost a vision of, at least my whole life, loving to hear people's stories. And I'm not sure how else I can frame that. I love to know what makes people tick, where they came from, why they do what they do, etc. And so obviously working with your daughter for the past year, I've heard a lot about your family, probably more than you know, maybe more than you wanted her to share. But one reoccurring theme has obviously been Leah talking about her mother. And I know the story behind that. I know that her name's Tammy Jean. I know she passed way too early in life. And so I kind of wanted to sit down. And again, I've heard stories from Leah, but I kind of want to sit down with you, Phil, and get the story of Tammy Jean through your eyes and your lens. So if you want to start with even how you guys met, and we'll go from there.
Oh, baby. Thank you. I'm honored to be here, man. This is special. So make it. It's a beautiful story. I'm going to make it quick. I'll get the high points. But when I was, this was in 1981. I had a girlfriend, and I went up to Grand Rapids, Minnesota, at a business meeting at the Holiday Inn. And we sat in the back right row, and in the front left row, during the meeting, this gal kept turning around looking at me. I'll never forget that. I don't remember meeting this gal. And 2-3 years later, I had friends up in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and I would go up there and meet these people and hang out. And it was Scott and Mary Chapman, and Mary was always trying to get me dates. She said, this is a good-looking guy. We got to get him a woman, you know. And I said, have you ever met Tammy Jean, Mark Hord's sister? I said, no. So we went there, and I met Tammy, and she was working at a vanity clothing store for women. And the conversation was weird. She was very nervous and messing with clothes on the clothes rack, and we didn't really talk. It was awkward. And I told Mary, that didn't really go well. And
not what you were looking for?
No, it was like, okay. Well, then, this was in 1986. I was at another business meeting, and I was in the back. This is when we had cassette decks. I was recording this guy, and this gal in the front right row was turning around, kept looking at me. And I went, at the break of the meeting, I went out to the lobby area, and Mark was standing there with Marcy, his girlfriend at the time, and Marcy goes, Phil, have you ever met Mark's sister, Tammy? And here's the gal that everybody wants me to meet, but she never talks to me. And I said, oh, yeah, we go way back, I said. And Tammy's like, oh, my God. So I'm always a kind of a hangy, loosey-goosey guy. I like to have fun. And but I didn't know this, but she liked me.
Okay.
She was nervous about that. But she came up, after I was gone and the meeting kind of subsided, she came up to Marcy and said, if it wasn't for my boyfriend Chopper, I would love to go out with Phil. Well, crazy thing is, 2 weeks later, her boyfriend calls her up on the phone and breaks up with her.
Yeah.
And she went down to Texas to visit her brother, mourning that, and came back and asked Marcy for my phone number. Didn't have cell phones back in 1986. And it was a Wednesday night. I was brushing my teeth. It was 11:15. I'll never forget it. My phone rang, and it was Tammy. She goes, hi, Phil. This is Tammy Hord calling. And I go, hi, Tammy. She goes, I'm going to be in St. Cloud visiting some friends. I want to see if you'd like to go out for coffee. And I'm going, Tammy, you mean this is Michelle, don't you? What a great question to ask someone. Yeah, I'm schizophrenic. That's right. I am Michelle, because she had a sister named Michelle. And I said, don't you have a boyfriend, Chopper? She goes, I did. Yeah. So she's asking me out. And so actually our first date was the first time we actually talked. And our first date was actually, I bought a J2000 Pontiac, and I met these people in St. Cloud, in Plymouth, Minnesota. Had my friend with. Yeah, at the last minute he wanted to come with because I was going to have a date with Tammy that night. Well, because Pete was with me, we couldn't go out, so we actually sat in my car and talked. And I drove around the block a couple times, and I told her, this is my new car. I said, oh, it's nice. And we just talked it was. And then she said, "I'm gonna come to St. Cloud. We'll have an official date." And we had a great time together. And I knew that night that that's the gal I was gonna marry. I called my mom the next. Yep. I called my mom the next day, and I said, "Mom, I met the gal I'm gonna marry." You know, the cool thing with Tammy was that I felt so comfortable with her.
Right away, right off the bat.
Right off the bat. I could be my weird self, and I felt so at peace and so comfortable. And she wrote me a letter. I got it a week later. Again, we didn't have cell phones, you know. So letter writing was a big deal. And I got her
Must
letter.
have been the longest week of your life, though.
Oh, you know, I was just, when I look back, I just felt good inside. It's like, wow. But I still have the letter she wrote to me, the first letter. And she said in her letter that I had a great time. I could be myself. I felt so comfortable with you because I could be myself. And I know if I would have proposed to her that a week later, she would have said yes.
But you didn't.
No.
Okay. So what happened next?
Well, we dated for 6 months. She was a nanny in St. Paul. And
So she's in St. Paul. Where are you?
I'm in St. Cloud, which is about an hour away.
Okay. So long distance relationship right off the bat.
Yeah. And but I don't know if we saw each other every weekend, but she would write me letters, and I still have all the letters that she wrote me, and I'm saving them for my daughters because it's precious. It's
Absolutely.
You know, a couple things that we did that were really cool. Maybe it's corny, but we would talk on a cassette tape player, and we would, "Hey Tammy, it's Tuesday. I'm off to work. I've got blah 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 blah." You know, and then she would talk on her tape, and then when we see each other, we'd change it. Here's my tape. Here's your tape. And I still have the tapes, and I was listening to them here recently, and I started crying because it was so precious.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean,
So precious.
That's a moment in time captured. So
And
you dated for 6 months?
Yeah, we dated for 6 months, and actually we would meet halfway sometimes in Monticello, which is halfways, and she had a Ford pickup with a topper, and she'd throw her bike in there and a tennis racket, and we would play tennis for an hour, and then we'd go biking for an hour, because I brought my bike, and then we'd go to a movie, and then we went to Perkins and had coffee. Left there about midnight, and she'd go home, and then we'd get on the phone. Did you make it home? And then we'd talk for another hour. That's what you do when you're in love, you know?
And so you're dating for 6 months, long distance, seeing each other about once a week, you think?
Yeah, we saw each other a lot.
Okay. And you felt it, obviously. I mean, you said you felt comfortable from day one.
Mm-hmm.
But so what is this 6 months like? What's going on now? Obviously, just feelings. Could they even get any stronger from what you're saying? Or
Well, she was a nanny.
okay.
So I would go with her gal. She was 13, the gal that she was nannying, and we would hang out. We would visit my sister a lot. They lived in Brooklyn Park, which is northern Minneapolis, and hang out with my nieces. And I was Uncle Phil, and then we'd go up to see her parents up in Grand Rapids, which is about almost 3 hour drive from Minneapolis. And a conservative family.
Sure.
They love the Lord, and Tammy loved the Lord. I loved the Lord, so we had that foundation in our life. But I'm a loud, kind of outspoken, crazy guy, and I like to have fun. And they're a little more reserved.
Okay.
And they say, "Who is this firecracker?" You know, like what? And Tammy just recently broke up. You know, kind of, and they thought I was the rebound.
Sure.
But I was not the rebound. I was.
So as time went on, they kind of figured you weren't the rebound. They liked you.
Her dad was his name was Bart. Through the years, we called him Black Bart. Barton one time, we call him, you know, and but he and I got along really well.
All right, so we're 6 months in. Where do we go? Where are we next?
We started. It was in April of '86 that our first phone call, and then November is when we got engaged, and we went to Chanhassen Dinner Theater. Had this all planned out. I bought a dozen red roses, and we were going to stay at my sister's. And I said, "Bring your dress with. We'll go to church on Sunday." I had this all figured out, man. If I could teach men how to be romantic and propose, because I had this all. I'm a very romantic guy.
All right. Well,
very intentional.
Let's teach the men then.
So the Chanhassen Dinner Theater is a beautiful place. You have a play that you watch, but you have dinner before. So beforehand, I had the reservations, and we drove down. And that day, we were looking for wedding dresses. I hadn't proposed yet,
Okay.
but we were looking at wedding dresses.
Okay.
And we got a little argument during the day. And I said, God dang it, I'm going to propose to this gal, and I just want to throw her out the window, And so we're in downtown Minneapolis driving up to Chanhassen, which is about a half an hour drive. And I said, let's go find a Burger King and eat. I was a big spender, And so we're driving for like 20 minutes. She goes, man, there's got to be a Burger King around here somewhere. So I saw the Chanhassen sign. I said, hey, Tammy, look it over there. I didn't want her to see the Chanhassen sign just in case she figured out we're going to the dinner theater, but no.
So
her daughter's
So Chanhassen, though, she would have known what this was?
No.
Okay.
I don't think she
Okay.
would have figured it out, but I
Okay.
just didn't want to, I didn't want to.
But she knew what Chanhassen was, though.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
gotcha. So, okay.
So
That
we
kind of
were
sets
always
the mood.
dreaming. We were a couple that dreamed all the time and just loving life. And so I drove up to the valet area of the Chanhassen Dinner Theater, and I stopped, and I looked at her. And she goes, what are we doing here? Are we going to go out to eat? Or are we just dreaming, And I didn't say anything. And I drove out of the parking lot, went down to the gas station that was there, and I parked, and I said, well, you better get your dress on. Reservations are at 6 o'clock. And she goes, oh, my gosh. She got all excited. And we went into these, I don't know if you could have a dirtier bathroom to dress in, but that's what we had. And but we went inside, and I had the dozen red roses and a vase already in the back seat of in the back trunk of my car. So we went in, sat at the table, and she was all excited. And I said, oh, I forgot the camera outside, which I didn't.
The camera, okay.
The camera. So I went out to the car, got the roses, got the vase, went into the bathroom, and put all the put the roses in the vase, and I put her ring on a stem of the red rose, one of the roses. And I walked out, and I got her on the corner, and she saw the roses. She went, and she was so surprised. And I set them on the table, and I turned the vase so the ring would stare her right in the face. And she goes, they're beautiful. And the ring went, it dropped. I did a dimpo, and I go, oh, that's not going to work. So I turned the vase back the other way, and I'm turning. She didn't even notice what I was doing. I'm getting that ring prop back up so it would just stare, and I turned it back in front of her, and she goes, aren't they beautiful roses, honey? Just smell them roses. Oh, man, they're beautiful. She goes, yeah, they're fine. They're beautiful. I said, well, honey, just smell them. Look at those roses. And finally she goes, oh. She sees this diamond ring, and she immediately starts crying. And I said, will you marry me? And she said, let me think about it. No, she said, yes, I'll do that. But the ring, the cool thing is that the ring that she got is the ring that she wanted.
Okay.
And she goes, this is she lived it. We didn't live together, but she goes, I had a dream the other night that you bought me the ring that we saw at Gordon's jewelry store. I said, well, that'll never happen. That dream will never come true. I said, I had the ring in my top dresser drawer.
Keep dreaming.
I had the ring in my top dresser drawer. And but yeah, it was a very, very special moment, and we had the waiter take a picture of us, and I have that picture. And the whole night she's looking at her ring, going like this. It was, yeah. It
so
was,
you are a romantic.
Yeah.
You've always been that way.
Mm-hmm. I've told my boys and other men that I know that are proposing, I said, you got to make this special. It's got, you got to.
Absolutely.
You don't want, my brother-in-law, he's a big fisherman, and he went fishing with his fiance, and she caught a fish, and he put the ring inside the fish's mouth. And here, you take the ring. You
Learned
take
that
the
from you?
You take the hook out, yeah. And I go, what if that? And she found the ring, So what if that fish would have flopped out, and there goes the diamond,
Gone overboard.
So today her ring still smells like a crappie, but.
All right, so you proposed, you are engaged, and now we're at dinner and a show. And the night.
Yeah,
the night.
I don't think she remembers the show, but she was looking at her ring the whole time.
Okay.
It was a comedy. It was a great play.
Okay, and then we are from there moving on to, obviously I know you have you've got 2 daughters and 3 sons.
4
sons. Okay, so let's fill in those gaps.
Okay.
We're engaged. We'll keep
November
moving
we
on.
got engaged, and we're planning the wedding, all those things, and then we got married in June We got November 8th, 1986, we got engaged, and June 20th, 1987, we got married.
Okay. So a year and a couple months from that
Yep.
first phone call. It's April to the next June.
That was 13 months.
Okay. So you're married. We're living together at this point?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
where
yeah.
are we?
When we get married, usually you live together. And
Well, you're old-fashioned, so you said not a day before that. So now you're married.
no,
You're living
she
together.
did move to St. Cloud, but she had her own apartment,
Okay.
and I had mine.
Okay. So now we're in St. Cloud.
Yeah, we moved to St. Cloud. You had an apartment in St. Cloud, 825 Driftwood Drive.
Okay. What are you doing for work at this point?
I was in sales.
Okay.
Worked
You're
for,
in sales.
I sold copy
She's still
machines.
nannying or now? She's doing
No,
something
she
different?
worked at Happy Chef as a restaurant.
What is she doing at Happy
waitress.
Chef? A waitress.
Happy
Okay.
Chef, yeah.
Okay.
She hated it, and she hated her manager, and I almost killed him.
Okay.
But anyway,
That's another story for another
yeah, that's another story. She always complained about it. But then she worked at Kmart
Okay.
and Shopko, one of the two. I think it was Shopko. There we go.
Yeah.
And but in 1988, our first child was born,
Okay.
September 14th.
You knew you were having kids? Something you
Oh yeah,
discussed?
Tammy.
You
One
just
of the
knew.
things Tammy always wanted to be. She always wanted to be a mom.
Yeah.
And she was an awesome mom. And when she got pregnant, we were very excited.
Okay. Your firstborn was?
A girl was what? Leah.
Leah May.
Leah May.
Okay. Leah May.
Leah May. And I was reading the Bible one night in Sauk Rapids, where we lived, and we were very intentional about naming our kids. And I read in the Old Testament, I heard Leah. I like that name. And I asked Tammy. She goes, "Yeah, I like that." And my son later, just I don't know, a year ago, said, "Dad, who named us?" And I thought that was a great question. So I guess I will take the credit for naming Leah.
Okay.
And she was amazing. Well, every baby's amazing, I guess. But Tammy and I were always on the move. And this was in 88, so it was a very hot summer, a lot of drought. And we'd hop in the car and take off. And one time we were taking off and ready to leave. And I said, "Wait a minute, we forgot Leah." She's in her what do you call those carrying things you carry babies in, strap them in. And she was in the house still wondering, where are they, So we had to go back in and get Leah. And I think she's recovered from that trauma. But
From what I hear, she's still dealing with it.
yeah,
So. Now, you say you and Tammy Jean were always on the move. You just mean you're always on the go. You're not moving around.
we didn't sit on watch television.
doing
We
things,
were
yeah.
out at adventures. We were out doing adventures. We'd be visiting friends, or we'd we'd go for walks.
Well, you can do that with no kids. Now you got one kid.
Yeah.
So tell me the story of how the family builds and how you guys are either still on the move. Tammy Jean's still working, always working? Does she ever stop working?
She was still working.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me think. I was in sales. I wonder if after she... Oh, man, this was several years ago. We lived in Sauk Rapids. I think maybe she had stopped working at the time, and I was just doing my thing. And she always wanted to be a mom, and I wanted to be a mom. And we didn't, and our kids were never in daycare.
Never.
No.
Okay.
And, we weren't wealthy at all. And our...
So, I mean, on that note, right, I know we live in a world today where people think you got to read a book, and you always hear, we're going to have kids when we're ready. We're going to have kids when we both have a job. We're going to have kids when I make, a manager, when I do this, when I do that.
Yeah.
You and Tammy Jean, that was never an issue.
We didn't plan anything. We just, I'm pregnant. I said, "Oh, great." I was excited.
Okay. So who are the kids in order then? We know Leah May first.
Leah's number one. Douglas is number two. He was born February 18th, 1990. Okay. And the cool thing with Douglas, I named him after my dad. That's why my dad was Douglas Dean. My dad's an awesome guy. And Douglas was born in, like I said, February. And I called my dad and said, "Hey, we have a son, and his name is Douglas. And his middle name is Philip, named after another great man." And, but the cool thing with Douglas when he was born is that he was crying. They put you on these little tin pans, for weighing.
The way you.
And he was, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know how they do. And his face was towards the wall. And I walked over to him. I said, Douglas, Dad's here. It's okay. And he slowly turned his head to look at me. And he stopped crying. Because Tammy and I, and we did this with all our kids, when the babies were in their tummy, we would sing to them. Mm-hmm. We would talk to them because they can hear. Yep. And that's why he turned, because he recognized my voice. And when I tell him that today, he goes, yeah, Dad, we've heard the story. But as a dad, it was very, very special.
Right, absolutely.
And Douglas was a wonderful little man, very athletic. He was in rollerblades when I think he was 4 years old, got the rollerblades on, and away he went, and he never had training wheels. You put him on a bike, and away he went. It was like, wow, this kid's going to be, my future's set financially. He's going to be some kind of a athletic all-star.
How'd that work out?
No, he's not.
Okay.
And,
so who's next then?
Next is Hannah Christine, and Tam had some issues with that pregnancy. She had to be careful. It wasn't necessarily bed rest, but she had contractions earlier than they wanted to. So, but Hannah was either going to be Hannah or Rebecca, and they came into the nursery or into the room before we left. They said, we have to have a name on this birth certificate before you leave. And should it be Hannah or should it be Rebecca? And we just said, it's going to be Hannah Christine. And she definitely is a Hannah Christine. Okay. Beautiful. She her smile lights the room up today. Mom would always say when Hannah enters the room, her smile lights up the room. Next was Bryant. And the cool thing with Bryant was he was the only child that was filmed. So I don't know if they can still do that, but I recorded this on a VHS. And I'll show it to you sometime. And and it's amazing, when you're having babies and they see the crown of their head coming out. I was having to be with Tammy on all 6 of our births to see our children enter the world is a very special thing.
And you were there each time?
Every time, yeah. And Tammy we had music, we had worship music on. And Bryant was stubborn. He's stubborn to this day, very strong-willed. Now, all our kids, I guess, are pretty strong-willed, but he didn't. He either had to turn or something, and I told the nurses, "Get over here. We're going to pray and lay hands on Tammy's tummy." And we prayed, and I said, "In Jesus' name, Bryant, come out." And something like that. I can't remember the word for word, but the nurses came over. Okay, late, and 5 minutes later, he was born. He popped out. And they popped them on Tammy's tummy, and we're going, oh, we have a boy. Oh, and the nurse is rubbing his back, and she's looking at her watch, and she's rubbing his back. He didn't breathe for 45 seconds. Whoa. So if it would have lasted another 15, they would have to take him in cold blue or something. But he finally started crying. We didn't know this at all, and till later. And number 5 is Philip, and when he has, most of my kids have pretty big heads, but Philip had a big head and gave Mom a hard time. And and they had to use a vacuum cleaner to try and suck him out. It was a Hoover, the first class model. Had 800 horsepower, I think, but he didn't want to come out. And so they used some kind of a forceps thing, and that didn't work. So they got a pitchfork. No, they didn't do that. Finally, he came out, and Mom lost some blood, and my mom came and said, "Oh, hi, Casper," and she turned white and started flying around the room. No, I was kidding, but we didn't know the name of Philip, and my dad and I went to a meeting later the next day, and came back. And she goes, I know what I'm going to name our son. I said, what? I'm going to name him. We're going to name him Philip. And I said, why? I'm going to, after his dad. So it was something that I guess she wanted to name a son.
No clue.
No clue at all. And so the funny thing is that when people would come over, Douglas Philip, that's his middle name, and then Philip, and I'm Phil. And my mother-in-law's name was Phyllis, so we called her Phil. So, so there's no more Phils ever going to be in our family, yeah. I don't think. Leah,
as far as you know.
Yeah, we're never going to have a Phil again. No, she didn't say that, but she's probably thinking it. Our last son was Drew, and Drew James. And so Leah was we had to do a what do you call it when they don't come vaginally? They got to come out through the tummy. What do they call
C-section.
that? C. ABC. Yeah, C-section. So our first and our last were C-section.
Okay.
And
so Drew James,
and he came out. The doctor said, "What a beautiful boy." And I did film that too, but not that surgery part, but him holding. And he was Douglas was 6 pounds 14 ounces. I think Drew was almost he was over 8 pounds, but that was in 1998. So Lee was in 1988. In 1990 was Douglas. 1992 was Hannah. 1994 was Bryant. 1995 was Philip, and 1998 was Drew.
Okay.
And that was the
So
end of the road.
6 kids later.
6.
Tammy Jean is working still or no?
Yeah, she started working at the Holiday Inn as a banquet server, and she mainly was on weekends. And I was still in sales, and the kids got involved in sports. And we bought a timeshare down in Florida in 1998, and we would go down there every summer. And sometimes we go to Branson. Kids loved it. We had a big van, and we were on the move. We did stuff. We had adventures. We took the kids to parks. I think, Tam and I weren't perfect, but we were very intentional with our children.
Tell me a little bit about. I mean, obviously, I've met you. I've heard stories from Leah, but tell me a little bit about Tammy Jean as a mother and what you loved about the way she raised and treated it and what she taught your kids.
Yeah. I wasn't home every day, obviously, because I was working. But one thing she spent time with the kids, and Leah could probably, or all my kids could tell better stories than me, but she wasn't, we weren't helicopter parents. We gave our children some freedom, but when the kids got a little ruly, I heard that she put them all at the dining table. We ate and tell them, put your hands on the table and put your fingers together and sit quietly. I don't want to hear a word for 5 minutes.
Okay, actually, hold on. I'm going to take some notes for
Yeah,
working with Leah.
and she and they listened. They were very I don't want to hear any talking. I mean, imagine 6 kids. Okay,
I'm trying to. That's why I knew that Tammy Jean must have been a rock star.
Yeah, she was. I'm sure she read to them. She was attentive. She loved the kids, and she said, if you don't shape up, Dad, when Dad gets home, we use the spoon, but not all the time.
Yeah.
And she would tap them on the butt, and they'd ouch, ouch. The boys would go ouch, ouch. It didn't even hurt, but I didn't. I knew that she knew that game. She said, wait till Dad gets home, and they were like, oh yeah, when Dad gets So I make sure that they could feel that spoon on their butts, and then when they would be out of line, I said, Douglas, shape up. You want the spoon? He goes, no, Dad. When they shape up, and you would shape up. Because you remember the spoon. Okay. And then my brother-in-law told me, what's even better? Have them go get the spoon. Get their own weapon. I said, that's a great idea.
So she set the framework for that. You just had to, at this point, you just had to come home and say, let me get the spoon.
Well, I'm going to love my kids and stuff. And she says, I got to go right into artillery mode, but that didn't happen very often. They were, the biggest thing was the timeout in the corner. Go ahead, go get a timeout. No, get a timeout. So they'd have to stand in the corner, and then Tammy would punch in the 3 minutes or 4 minutes on the microwave, and then she'd leave, and then the boys said, we'd go up and we'd change the time on the microwave and go back and do a timeout. And Mom figured that out. She goes, I may be dumb, but I ain't stupid.
Go get the spoon.
Go get the spoon.
It's a bigger spoon at this point, right? It's a pitchfork.
But no, she was a great mom. She loved the kids. I'll let you ask him another question.
I mean, obviously, I know it's not the most fun part of the story, but I know. I mean, you've described the beginning of your relationship, and I mean, even from the beginning, in the way you described Tammy, I know she's amazing. I've heard the stories from Leah. You've got the 6 kids, so I do want to hear about. I want to move toward the beginning of the end. I mean, that is Only because I know a little bit about the strength that it involves. So, kind of start with me. When did Tammy get sick?
So this was this is in 2008. Tammy always wanted to have a dog, and I wanted to have a dog, but I said, well, I want to wait till we get out in the country. We were always dreaming, and the financial part never got to that point where that could happen. And she's sitting in a chair, and I'm sitting on the couch, and she's opening up the newspaper. I'll never forget it. She goes, Phil, we're getting a dog. And I knew with that tone and that was time to get a dog, And she goes, there's dogs for sale in Clearwater, the Black Labs, and they're $50. I go, okay, all right, let's go get a dog. So we drove there. The kids stayed home, and they were old enough to take care of themselves, kind of. And so we drove to Clearwater, and they had all males left. There was like 5 of them. And they're bark, whatever they do, little puppies do. They're 8 weeks old. And I said, how are we going to pick this dog out? And I said, I got an idea, and I believe it was from God. I said, I'm going to walk over here, and the first puppy that walks over to us, that'll be the dog we'll get. And that was Charlie.
Charlie.
Yeah. And we already knew his name. I had a mentor in my life. His name was Charlie, so we wanted to name our dog after my mentor. And we took Charlie home, and we wanted to surprise the kids, so we put them in a box.
You put the kids in the box?
No,
sorry.
yeah.
I'm trying to match your level of dad jokes.
We sat in the Madison parking lot, Madison Elementary School's parking lot. No, excuse me, North Junior High's parking lot. And I said, how are we going to do this? And I said, Karen Cruz was the music teacher down the street that would always give us applesauce and milk and leftovers from the kitchen they would throw out. And she said, no, we're going to give that to the Amundson, So we were her refugee family that she'd feed us. And so we put the dog in the box, or Charlie in the box, and we went in our porch. And I said, kids, come here. Karen's got something for us. And they go, it's probably applesauce or something. Yeah. I said, no, it's something special. And so they all came out. I think it was Hannah was there, and Douglas wasn't there. Philip was there. I think 4 of our 6 kids were there, and a couple friends of Hannah's. And I said, Drew, open up the box. See what Karen's got for us. And he took the blanket off, and there was Charlie. And and Hannah immediately started crying because they all wanted a dog.
For a long time, yeah.
And Charlie was, it was perfect timing because I think it was maybe a week or 2 later, Tammy, our insurance, this was over Thanksgiving. Our insurance is changing, so I'm going to go have a breast exam. And she may have found something, is what prompted that. Okay. She never shared that with me. But she went in, they found a lump, and they said, we're going to do a biopsy and make sure this is just nothing serious. I think she knew that it was something. And she got a phone call, and I was home, and a friend of ours was there also. And she said, we'd like you to come in and talk about the results. She goes, no, you can tell me now on the phone. No, we normally don't do that. Well, you're going to tell me on the phone. Tammy was beautiful, polite, respectful, but I tell you, when she put her foot down, that was it. And they told her you have breast cancer. And I'll never forget the 3 of us in the kitchen. We hugged, the 3 of us, and we prayed. And I saw a side of my wife that I'd never seen before.
You said the 3 of you?
And she had a friend over, Jenny Meyer, a dear friend of ours. And we prayed together. And Tammy said, I'm going to kick cancer's ass. And I saw a warrior rise up in my wife I'd never seen before. And it was powerful. And the doctor said I think he said it was stage 4. It's pretty serious. We need to have surgery right away. So in 2 weeks, she had surgery. They took out 16th lymph nodes. And the doctor said, she's not going to have any more cancer in her when I'm done. And okay. And she had a lumpectomy. And she went through a series of
radiation?
Yeah, thank
chemo?
you. I was brain fog there. Radiation, then also chemo after that. And she lost her hair, but she was beautiful.
But up until this point, so I'm not gonna lie, I don't have a lot of experience with cancer. So by the time they find it, she's stage 4. But up until then, life's just normal. You
Yeah.
guys are
Yeah.
on the go.
Yeah,
You're
it's
taking road
crazy.
trips. She's working, 6
Yeah.
kids, buying dogs. She's not tired. She's not feeling.
No, I
ill.
don't remember
She's
any of
not-
that.
Wow.
No, we brought Charlie to get our Christmas tree right after Thanksgiving, and we were going to go up to my sister-in-law's for Thanksgiving, but we decided not to go because I can't remember what the deal was, but we had Charlie out looking for a Christmas tree, and that was over Thanksgiving, and then that Monday she went in and had this done because our insurance was changing, and we had to do that for the end of before December started. But no, she wasn't feeling anything at all.
So she would not have gone to the doctor if your insurance wasn't changing.
That I don't know,
Right? Like,
because
there's this
I
weird
wonder if she
prompting of-
found something, and that's why she wanted to go.
Okay.
I think she maybe found something, felt a lump, and
Okay.
didn't tell me.
So we are stage 4, but you said the doctor said we're good.
Well, he said
We took out the 16 lymph nodes.
Yeah, 16. That was a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about lymph nodes,
Sure.
but you don't want to. When you get cancer, if it's in the lymph nodes, it's like TWA. It goes to other parts of your body, and it's not good. But I'll never forget. Just when you have something like that, you hear cancer, your life changes. I mean, I remember praying, and man, you think you trust God when you have trauma in your life, that life-changing things. That's when you really, do I have faith? Am I going to trust God? And then they wanted to do, they wanted to make sure there wasn't more cancer in her body. So they had to put a dye in, and it would show up other places, and that took about a week for all that. And I'm going, oh my gosh. So you're battling thoughts in your mind that whole week.
Right, 'cause you still have to live life.
I
You
still have
go
to
work.
live
You got
life.
6 kids.
And here's my wife going through this. She's still in the recovery room, and you got to battle these thoughts. My wife going to die? She got cancer other places, and you're speaking the word, and it's it's not God giving you those bad thoughts.
Right. No,
It's it's the
absolutely.
devil.
But the
And,
doctor. So at this point, again, this is not a situation where the doctor says you have 3 weeks. You guys are kind of flying blind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I remember talking to him. He said, if the surgery went well, Phil, I believe that I've got all the cancer out. Took out 16 lymph nodes. And
At this point, she stopped work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're
this was this was 2008.
Okay.
Leah just graduated, and she was not at home. And I think Douglas graduated the next year, so he was a senior. And
I mean, you might not be able to answer this, but how did the kids take it? I mean, I can imagine there might be some hiding emotions, some ignoring emotions.
yeah, back then I don't remember.
Yeah. I mean, you've got 6 kids plus you and Tammy Jean, 8 of you, all trying to deal with this in your own way.
We raised
It might be a blur. I mean,
David, we raised our kids with the Lord, and we Tam and I had Bible study almost every morning. We had coffee and Bible time, and we'd sing "Jesus Loved Me" to our kids. We prayed with our kids. We read stories. They were well loved, and disciplined in the right way, I feel, and they felt safe. They had a great home life, so I think they were emotionally good. But then this challenge came. And I think it was important for their dad to see their dad not be falling apart, and which I don't believe I was.
I mean that's what I was going to ask you as a man, and I've got 3 kids myself. In this moment with this news, did you feel as a human equipped to help and deal with your kids, or were you thankful that they had a relationship with God? So maybe in your weakness and your loss and confusion, that they had God. I mean, I assume you must have felt a little helpless.
Yeah, you're totally dependent on God. I mean, this is life-changing. Wow. I mean, so this was in 2008, so our youngest was 10 years old, and our oldest was 20. And so Leo was out of the house. I think Douglas was on his way out, and so we still had 4 at home. But I really it was. I don't remember all the conversation the kids had with me with mom.
Yeah. How long? So how long's the battle? This is 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So she recovered from that, and then the crazy thing is, in 2009, wait a minute, 2008 was the year where the real estate market went crazy.
Yeah.
That was I probably won't
Big
take
Short,
the time, but we had some miracles happen in 2008. That God was there, and then that fall is when we had the diagnosis. But 2009, right after that was a challenge year. Tammy and I had to file bankruptcy. So, yeah, and we didn't want to do it, but we had to. And the guy I was working with at the time, I wasn't getting paid. It was a lot of stress.
Cancer and bankruptcy within less than a year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And but I got stories where God came through. It's when you go through challenges in life, you got to look back on the victories that God got you through, to get you through, because He'll show up. And I really believe that He was working something in you for a purpose. Yeah, He's always God's always in control. And yeah. So then, what else?
Well, so we're 2009.
Yeah.
Keep going.
2010. Our kids were active in sports, in choir. Our oldest has a beautiful voice, and her sister Hannah had a beautiful voice, so they're very active in the choir. Mom loved that, loved going to their concerts. I did too. And our boys were athletes, and they played basketball, they played football, they played baseball, and I had a wrestler. And so we were busy going to events with the kids, sporting events.
Tammy Jean's on this. I mean, she's on a roller coaster though. She feel good some days, feel bad some days, or are we cruising at okay?
She, when she was doing her after that, she was doing her chemo.
Okay.
She had a radiation, lost her hair.
Yep.
But she had to, she was on chemo. She had to go in for that. Yeah, she would be tired.
Okay.
She would be run down. It's not a good thing. If the cancer don't kill you, the chemo will.
Yeah.
And but she was strong. Tammy was always upbeat, always positive. She never was complaining.
Yeah. She never showed the tiredness, never showed the weakness, never showed.
Well, she said, "I'm tired, Phil," but she never asked for self-pity. Yeah. She never was someone, feel sorry for me. She wasn't. She was too good for that. She was awesome. She was a great example of being a warrior, a woman of strength. Yeah.
During this time, then obviously, right? Because, like you said, 6 kids. I mean, it sounds brash, but life goes on. So, kids' life's going on. When was it apparent the end was near? And did she know? Did the doctor say it? What came first?
Well, 2017.
Yeah.
Leah was home, and I'll never forget. Tammy's walking up the stairs from our basement, and she goes, "Oh, I just can't catch my breath." And
so we're 7 years into this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This
7 years.
Yeah.
Of
so. Well, yeah. We never had any more dealing with cancer after that. She was living life, doing good. Yeah.
Working
she was,
or no? It's staying home with.
She was working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
She was working to get the holiday in. Yeah. And we never talked about the cancer again. We're walking in faith, and we're living life.
Recovered from bankruptcy.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And our kids didn't know anything about that. We never shared that with our kids. What we went through, which I don't think a kid should know that. They should love life. And went to Disney World. Still went to Disney World.
Yeah.
And but in 2017, she wasn't. She said, "I'm going to go into the doctor," and she knew something was up, and I did too. And they took fluid out of her lungs, and it was cancer. And it was breast cancer again. They called it breast cancer. She had fluid in the lining of her lungs that they had to take out. So it wasn't radiation. She had to do chemo.
Okay.
And the doctor said this isn't curable or anything like that. And so we put our faith in the Lord. We claimed healing. We believed that that she'd be healed. But she said, "Okay, here we go again." So she strapped on her warrior clothes. And she never claimed that she was a victim. She just got tough again. She was amazing. How she said, we're gonna get through this. And that was in 2017. And that next day, Leah, our oldest, flew off to New York.
Yeah.
And you can imagine your oldest had an amazing relationship with her mom. And now she has to leave to go to New York, and her mom is here dealing with cancer. And so Leah, my oldest, she's an amazing daughter, very strong-willed, and but in a good way. You know, you have to go through the stuff the journey that she's been on. You got to be a tough cat, you know. But she went through the chemo, and she had a HER2 gene. It's called that. It's a kind of a cancer-producing gene. So once normal chemo was done, she had to do chemo every 3 weeks, probably for the rest of her life, because it was an estrogen-generated thing to keep your estrogen under control, because that was like the fuel to feed the cancer. And she got to the point where she got headaches. She goes, I don't want to do this anymore. Let's just trust God and let's do the homeopathic thing. So we tried some homeopathic avenues, and things were good. We went to Hawaii. We lived life. But in 2018, she was having her breathing again. She'd go in, and the fluid was starting to come back. So they'd have to stick a needle in her back and pull out the fluid, about 750 milliliters, about a bottle of wine.
A fluid in her back.
Yeah, in her lungs. And then she'd be good for another month, and then we'd have to do it again. And 2018, we went out to New York to see Eric Clapton, and when we saw Leah. And at that time, she was getting the fluid out about twice a month. So she took the fluid out so we could fly, and she was good. And then when we got back, she'd have to do fluid, and it got to be 3 times a month. Then it was once a week. Then it was once every 4 days.
Still a bottle of wine, 750 milliliters, always that amount.
And she never complained.
Okay.
And it's like someone sitting on your chest.
Okay.
And she'd wake up in the middle of the night and go sit on the couch. And I'd wake up and she wasn't there. And I'd walk and she's sitting on the couch, you know, resting or trying to sleep. I'd go, and she, you know, I was her caretaker then because she couldn't get up and read or get water. I'd have to give it to her because she couldn't have her breath. So we'd go into the hospital, take out the fluid. The doctor at that time said, I see you're going in and getting all these plurals, they call them. I think that's what they call them. You need to come in. This was her cancer doctor. They have a name for that. He said, Tammy, if you don't start taking chemo again, this was in December of 2018, you'll be dead in 90 days. And she goes, what? And she didn't there was no fear. Mm-hmm. And she said, okay. And the guy that I am working with still today, we knew a guy out in Colorado that's a brain doctor. Excuse me, let me back up. That was in 2018. So we started chemo again in 2019 on my birthday. And we were also, the kids wanted us to move out of St. Cloud, move closer to them. So we moved to Minneapolis. So we're selling our house, going through all our memories. We've been in that house 28 years. So we had to go through everything.
So that was the house all the kids have been born in,
all
raised
the memories.
in? Okay.
It's just a house, but man, that house had full of memories. Yeah. We had a fireplace, and we played games in front of the fireplace and play Frank Sinatra. So we're going through all this stuff, and and Charlie's still with us, and Charlie wasn't doing well, and I said, he wasn't doing well at all. We'd go for walks, and he'd stop and just lay down. He could catch his breath, and I think it was almost like what Mom had, and so we had to take him in and put him down, and that was very, very hard. And so Tammy and I we'd have coffee in the morning, we'd cry, talk about Charlie. And
how old was he?
Charlie was 10 and a half years old.
All right, so he had lasted 10 and a half years.
And that was in March of 2019. And we had Easter at our home and for the last time with all the relatives. And then we moved to Excelsior, Minnesota in June 30th of 2019. And 2 months later, Tammy was acting kind of weird. She couldn't remember the kids' birthdays.
Okay.
Yeah, that was so I knew something was up again.
Yeah.
So and she was doing her chemo again. We started that every 3 weeks, and the nurses. So we went to St. Cloud, and the nurses said, "Yes, Tammy's acting funny. She's not her normal self." So we did a CAT scan for the brain, And they said, I'm very sorry to tell you that your wife has brain cancer.
From breast cancer to brain
Yeah.
cancer.
So the kind of breast cancer that she had
Sure.
normally leads to brain cancer, which they didn't tell us, which is probably a good reason. So she had a lot of lesions on her brain. So if you take a piece of cheese and cut it into it, that's a lesion.
Okay.
And they'll just keep growing, getting, and there was so many to count, they couldn't count them all. So that was in September of 2019, and she started 10 brain radiations. And it was an Asian doctor who's very good, and I said, "Can I pray with you?" He said, "Yes." So, yeah, we're not afraid to talk about Jesus. You know?
No, never should be, right?
No. And said, "Yeah." And so Tammy went in and had 10 brain radiations, and I'll never forget the day that she rang the bell for the last one. Again, she lost her hair. We were living in an apartment in Excelsior, and that was September of 2019. And then she was, they had to get on this chemo pill that they got from Boston College Hospital, whatever it was, and it was $25,000 a month.
A month.
For this pill. He said, this drug will go into her brain. Your brain has a barrier. It won't let anything into it. But this drug acted as, harmless, and would let it in, and it would turn into a, fighting warrior to kill these cancer cells. And so that was in September. So and then 2020 came, and she's doing great, and we traveled. Then the COVID came, and in 2021 of March, we went into the doctor. He said, "Well, the lesions are back," and that's when we decided to go out to Colorado to visit this brain doctor. And to make a long story short, we met a gal that introduced us to a couple. We stayed at their home and got out of our hotel, and they brought us to church. And Tammy, they prayed over her, and she was slain in the spirit, and it was a beautiful, amazing thing. And she got up, and she says, "I just felt this warm peace go through my body. I'm healed." And Tammy was just always fun and talkative and full of energy, and I got my old Tammy back. So we drove out to Colorado, and we were driving back, and she was like my old Tam.
Wow.
And that was in May of 21. And that whole month, she was telling her testimony, sharing it with people. I'm healed. And we went out to see my son in Chicago, him and his wife and our grandson. And when we got back, we went for a walk. And then we were going to have a glass of wine on the porch of our apartment. And she said, "Phil, I'm feeling a little wonky." That's what she used when her brain was.
Sure.
And that's when the wheels started falling off. And that was in March. And, end of May. What am I doing? Memorial weekend. And the next 7 months, she just slowly, it was just deteriorated. I don't want to keep talking unless you got more questions.
No, I mean,
But in answer to your question, that this was.
It's a beautiful story, and from the beginning of your story, God is present.
Mm-hmm.
You told me your background, Tammy Jean's, her parents. God keeps appearing.
Mm-hmm.
You're praying with doctors. You're praying to your kids. You're reading Bible verses. So I guess honestly, in these last 7 months and towards the end, just speak to me about God's presence and Tammy Jean and her faith and her strength.
So the kids wanted us to move closer so we could be together, and we had an apartment in Excelsior.
Just you two?
Yeah, just the two of us, and a 2-bedroom. It was a cozy place, and Excelsior's right on Lake Minnetonka, beautiful area. And she had her moments where she was good, and then her moments when she wasn't good. There'd be one time when she goes, "Phil, I need." She wanted her glasses, and she I can't remember what she said. That I finally figured out she wanted her glasses, and she couldn't get the words out. And she would wake up in the morning before I did, and she'd make oatmeal, but there was no milk in the pan. There'd be oatmeal in there that was dry with strawberries in there. And I go, "What are you doing, Tam?" "I'm trying to make oatmeal." And she would go, "Ugh." She would just get frustrated because she knew she wasn't right, but she never complained, never. But as the months moved on, she just got worse. And
but she's still walking, talking, functioning. We're not talking hospice. We're not talking
No,
dementia.
No.
She's getting up every day and
Yeah.
fighting.
Yeah, she never complained, and we prayed together. And through all this, God's grace. I'll share more about this, but God's grace was with us. She would talk about other people. People would come over, and she'd ask them, and they weren't there for them; they were there for her. But she
was there for them.
Yeah, she was a beautiful, amazing woman. And so in September, the doctor said, "You got to have your end of life talks."
Okay.
And I asked her, "Tam, where do you want to be buried?" We didn't talk about death because we believed that she'd be healed.
Sure.
She would go grounding. She'd read scripture. She changed her diet. She did all that we could to walk in divine health. And September, the doctor said, "You should get hospice." And we're thinking, hospice? That's like, no, that's not because of that. It's to help you, Phil, and stuff. So October is when I'll never forget. Tam was slowly having a hard time walking, and then we got a wheelchair. And I remember all the kids were with us. We went walking in a wheelchair with her around where we lived, and I'd push the wheelchair to the bathroom. She'd get out, go to the bathroom, and get back in the wheelchair, and it went from helping her walk to the wheelchair and help her in her bed. But through all this time, I wasn't falling apart. I wasn't crying. I was taking care of my wife. I was loving my wife. And one day, she was on the toilet, and I helped her up, and she was struggling, and I was struggling to get her in the wheelchair. And she said, "Phil, just let me go." I'll never forget that. "Phil, just let me go." And then I brought her to the couch.
First time in this whole journey she's actually voiced that.
Yeah, before that, we're at the stoplight, and she goes, "Phil," this was 4 months before that. Before she died, she goes, "Phil, if things don't work out the way we'd like, I'd like you to marry again." So when I think about that, I think she was like, "Okay, I'm putting up the white flag."
4 months before that.
Yeah.
She knew, but she's still fighting.
But she wasn't going to tell her family. She was a fighter. She was fighting. She was like my mom. She would fight for her family. And but that day, she said, "Phil, just let me go." And I sat her on the couch and said, "Phil, just let me go." I said, you want to go home to heaven?" And she goes, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, I'll let you go." But in my heart, and then it got to the point, Leah came home. That's when she saw her mom for the last time. And we decided to get, hospice bed. And when we laid her in that bed, that she never got out of that bed again. And Leah was home, and so the last time she saw her mom was in the hospice bed. And same with Douglas. And they went off to, New York, and Douglas went to Illinois. And I was her caretaker. I fed her. I changed her diaper. I brushed her teeth. I gave her water. I did everything. And people would ask me, how you sleeping at night, Phil? I said, "I sleep great." Yeah. And how do you do that when your wife is in a hospice bed in the other room? I got more, but if you got a question, lay it on me.
I was going to say that, but as you tell that story, and obviously from the last 40 minutes, an hour, when Tammy Jean says, "Let me go," I can honestly feel it was not because she was giving up. It was her always thinking of other people. She was thinking of you taking care of her, and she's saying, I'm good, so please let me go, so you guys can move on. I mean, it's so selfless. It's so faith driven.
Oh yeah. That's a great way to look at it.
That's what I hear when you tell the story. So, were you with her when she passed?
Yes, I would go for walks for an hour. I'd come back, and she wasn't going anywhere, and she could still talk. I mean, we didn't have lengthy conversations, but I'd wake up in the morning and I'd say, "I love you, honey." She said, "I love you." I said, "You want eggs or want this?" She said, "Eggs." So I'd make her eggs, and I can't remember every conversation, but it wasn't lengthy because I'd ask her a question, she could answer it. But I would pray to her. I'd read the Bible to her. I'd watch Hallmark movies with her. That's how you have real love, And but the day that it was December 15th. Let me back up and just say the things that I do remember. I remember kneeling in front of her on her bed, and I said, "Tam, I'm sorry for all the stupid things I've done. Will you please forgive me?" And she said, "Phil, I forgive you." And then one time I said, "Tam, what do you think about when you lay here all day long?" She said, "Phil, I think about good things." And that's my password. I have a website saved, and there's things I want to do ministry-wise, and it's going to be called Good Things. And my other daughter, bought me a T-shirt at Christmas that says, "Think good things." God, very special. Can you imagine you're dying, and you know it, and you're thinking about good things? That tells you the kind of woman she was.
Absolutely does.
She's thinking about heaven, thinking about her family. She never fretted and worried and grumbled, complained. And one day I was looking at her. This was 5 days before she died. And she wasn't talking a whole lot now. And I said, she was looking at me in a really peaceful, precious way. And I said, "Why are you looking at me like that? I've never seen that look before." And she said, "Phil, I'm just admiring you." Can you imagine? God allowed her to say a 5-word sentence. And I thought about that a lot. She didn't say, "I like you, I love you, you're special." She said, "Phil, I am admiring you." Because what she saw was her dream man taking care of her every day, being strong for her. I remember she said, "Phil, I need you to be strong for me now." And I was strong for her. I prayed with her. I brushed her teeth. I changed her diaper. I read her the Bible. I would sing to her. And she didn't see me falling apart. She saw me being strong. And she saw me fulfilling my vows. She saw my love in action. Because you can tell someone you love them all day long, but where's the actions? Right. And I know she was watching me. Man, look at this guy. He loves me. Because my needs weren't being met.
Sure.
She couldn't do anything, but she saw me serving her, loving her, through sickness, through health, for richer, for poorer, through death do us part.
This is 5 days before she passed?
5 days before she died. And
are these the last words she speaks to you?
The last words she ever spoke to me.
Say them again.
"Phil, I'm just admiring you."
And she never spoke again.
Mm.
But she lived 5
more days. And I went the day she died. It was 55 degrees. And I went for a walk. I remember I talked to Leah. We talked for quite a while. And I got back, and I read Psalm 91 to her. And then I went into my office, and I was doing some emails and stuff. Can you imagine? And I heard her start moaning pretty loud. They had morphine for me when this had happened, but she never complained about headaches. Can you imagine And so I went in and gave her the morphine, and that calmed her down. And her right arm was always strong as far as I grab her hand. There's another time that I was holding her hand. I would get up and she wouldn't let my hand go. And I said, "You want me to stay here?" She goes, "Yeah." That was that was a special moment too. And so I called all the kids. I said, "You better come." And 4 of my local kids came. And we called the hospice nurse, and because she didn't have any more morphine, so we had to get more morphine. She's on the phone, and Hannah was sitting next to Mom, holding her hand. And Hannah goes, "I don't think she's breathing anymore. She hasn't been breathing for a while." So the nurse got up and checked her pulse. And they said, "No, she's gone." And we grew up as a family with music, and one of Tammy's favorite songs was "It Is Well With My Soul." And everything that she got as gifts, it is well with my soul. And it truly was. She lived it. It is well with my soul. And so we had Spotify on our TV. Praise music was going on. And when she breathed her last, let me back up again. I'm sorry. When we had to take Charlie in for the last day, "It Is Well With My Soul" came on the radio. And Charlie's on his bed, and I'm hugging him, crying. And "It Is Well With My Soul" came on. And Tammy goes, "Look at God's here. God knows." And when Tammy breathed her last breath, guess what came on the Spotify? "It Is Well With My Soul." And about a minute after she breathed her last, there's the loudest thunder that you'd ever heard cracked outside. And I said, "That's Tammy. Tammy Jean just entered the gates. Heaven will be forever changed." And I raised my hands, and I praised the Lord. We praised Him. It was a special moment.
And
we had to call Leah, and to hear your children crying, wailing on the other end. Because Leah and Mom had a special relationship. They were best friends. I had to call my son Douglas. We FaceTimed him, and I'll never forget my son Douglas when he heard his mom was gone. He was sliding down the wall to the floor, sobbing. You know, the hardest thing, sorry, man, this is the hardest thing about being a parent when your wife's gone is to see their kids not have their mom anymore.
That loss.
She was so special. You know, it's been 4 years, and this season that I've been in has been the hardest I've ever been through. You know, this is the time of year she died. She died a week ago.
A week ago.
And you think after 4 years you'd be... grief doesn't have a time limit. And people said that just shows how deep and strong your love was for her. And people have said you and her had a powerful love, and we really did. And but you know, I have not been angry really at God. He is our strength. He is our foundation. Without Him, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And I don't know why she couldn't still be here. I've got grandkids now that, you know, it'd be great to have Grandma here.
Right.
She loved Christmas. It's Christmas time, and she's not here. But God has a reason. And
well, you said something before that struck me, and that is, you said you wanted to start a ministry.
Mm-hmm.
That you thought about that.
Yeah. You know, I'm praying about that. You know, I think it says in 2 Corinthians, or is it 1 Corinthians, where it talks about He's the God of all comfort. that whatever you've been through or going through, that you want you to help others that have been through the same thing, in so many words. And there's a lot of people grieving today that are hurt. A lot of people blame God. And I want to, and I've spoken before. I like to speak. I've got a big mouth. Joyce Meyer, she says, I got a big mouth. I get paid for my mouth. And I love to make people laugh. I'm a big encourager on people. And losing your bride, your soulmate, is the absolute hardest thing that I have ever been through in my life. And I'm not complaining. Tam never allowed complaining.
Yep.
And she goes, Phil, we're not going to complain about this right now. We're going to praise the Lord. So our kids, we don't allow any complaining in legacy and honor of their mother. And I'll never forget Rachel, my daughter-in-law, was complaining to Tammy one time. And Tammy didn't say a word, just looked at her, turned her head, and walked away. And Rachel goes, I'll never complain to Tammy again. She didn't listen. She just walked away from me.
Yep.
And she wouldn't allow it. And but I want to do something with that, and maybe David, you can help me with that. But maybe this is the start of it right here. I was going to
say, I mean, when we sat down, and I did tell you, and I know folks listening might not know, and some folks might not care, but you're literally the first person to sit in these chairs with these microphones and tell a story. And it's not just about loss, Phil. I mean, you've got a lot to teach people in general, and probably in the last hour you already have. So unfortunately for you, there's no money to be made because you told your whole story. And people can take this and run with it. And you've taught a million men without nothing to gain. But no, seriously, from your walk with faith in the very beginning, chivalry, the way you live, the way you treat your wife, your kids. But honestly, I'm just blessed to hear even more of the story of Tammy Jean. I mean, I know she was in this room the whole time. And I know that God brought us together for this reason, because her story was not just told, it will continue to be told. And her strength and her faith is just felt in this room, and it's felt through this story, which will never die. So I'm just thankful.
I appreciate it.
And I'm thankful for you sharing it. I can't imagine that was easy at all.
Well, I love sharing it because Tammy I love talking about my wife because she was really was amazing. She was the type of woman that you wouldn't always remember what she said, but you'll never forget how she made you feel.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing the story.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Let's make this the first of several.